Looks like we actually might have a day that cleared up enough to take a motorcycle ride. So I'm going.
This was supposed to be a simple ride. 30 minutes, no destination, no plan, just getting out for a bit. That's usually how these winter rides start for me. They're usually short and quite manageable. But it didn't take long to realize this ride wasn't going to be simple at all. Because winter in Indiana doesn't just change the temperature, it changes the roads. And once you realize that, everything else starts to shift with it. Indiana roads go through a lot. They freeze, they thaw, they freeze again, and ultimately, water works into cracks, it freezes, and it expands. And before long, the pavement starts coming apart. And this happens every year, and it makes huge potholes. But the worst potholes aren't always the obvious ones. You can actually see those coming. It's the subtle ones. The ones that blend in. The ones hiding in the shadows. Or sitting right where your tire naturally wants to be. Roads that I've ridden for years suddenly stop matching the picture that I have in my head. The muscle memory is there, but the surface underneath it isn't. Pretty quickly, I started to realize that this ride stopped being about where I was going, and it became about what was right in front of me. Looking ahead. Not looking for traffic or the upcoming corner. Looking for the road itself. A deep pothole isn't something you just feel and move on from. At best, you're dealing with something on your bike that's broken. At worst, you're dealing with the consequences of going down. And that's enough to keep your attention where it belongs. So you try to stay ahead of it, scanning farther up the road, paying attention to the surface, not just where the road goes. And once the ride narrows down like that, you sort of stop settling in. And the consequences of that is that it changes your headspace. You never really fully relax. Every straight feels temporary. Every corner feels conditional. You don't assume the road will cooperate. You wait for it to prove that it will. You're not flowing with the road whatsoever. You're managing it. And even on a short ride, that constant attention adds up. Not in your hands, not in your back, but in your focus. And I'd like to take some time now to ask you to shift your focus to hitting the like, subscribe, and notification icons. This will make sure that each of you are along for our next journey. At some point, I realized I was riding slower than I had expected. Nothing dramatic, just enough to leave room. Letting cars go ahead, letting the ride stretch out ahead of me. Not because I had to, but because there was no reason not to. This ride wasn't about speed. It wasn't about momentum. It was about margin. leaving space for things I couldn't see yet. And that idea carries past this ride. This winter feels like a pause. The yearly calendar flips, but momentum doesn't automatically follow. When it's dark by 5:30 p.m., time starts to feel quite unreliable. You measure light instead of hours, and you wait for conditions to improve instead of forcing movement. It's the same feeling that shows up after the start of a new year. Everyone tries to force progress, but the conditions don't always allow for it. And pushing too hard, too early, usually just creates problems that you didn't need. Now, I know what's coming. The light will return. The salt will wash away. The pavement will settle back into something predictable again. But until then, rides like this still matter. They slow you down. They sharpen your judgment. And they remind you that not everything needs to be forced. 30 minutes. Just a handful of miles. More potholes than I care to count. But nothing dramatic happened, and nothing went wrong. But I did come back sharper than when I left. And I'd still rather be out here paying attention than waiting for perfect conditions that never really show up. So as always, ride safe, stay curious, and enjoy the journey.